You know, oh well, my computer has sound to it. Um, wow, I meant to come in here very much like professional and or we just got back from Gen Con and vacation. I know we're a week late. That's because I took a vacation. That happens. I went camping. I hit the mountains after Gen Con. Um, but I meant to come in here way more professional than I did, and then realized, oh, I forgot to set up my mic, didn't I? Yep, that sounds about right with me. I didn't set up my mic, and here we go. And give me just a second. I'm just making sure I get my audio right. Uh, yeah. Wow, we are not off to a good start for this show. Oh, whoa. I just sorry. Yeah, so that was kind of a functional reset here. As I get my brain back on the topic at hand. So a couple weeks ago we had Gen Con 2024, the big gaming event of the year. Uh not you video gamers, but for you tabletop gamers, our favorite kind of people. And I got a chance to go this year, which is great. Now, I went, with the Wrecking Crew. I was able if you saw me there or ended up in my games, remember Hector is the bad guy, um, and Alejandro is a sniveling coward. But, aside from that inside joke with the players who actually played in my, games oh, sorry. Gen Con was a great experience. I actually had a blast. This year so if you don't know what Gen Con is, it is the big gaming convention held out of Indianapolis this year, in which case, they show off the big tabletop games. We have tabletop war games, we have tabletop, RPGs, we have board games, deck builders, card games, everything under the sun at Gen Con, and it is huge. Now, when I'm talking huge, I mean 70,000 people watching. Not watching, but there and more watching because they did live events and pre-record events. I heard that Critical Role was there. There, everyone was there. Just a massive event. 70,000 people. The event was sold out when I rolled up to Indianapolis. It was completely, and I mean completely sold out. Like downtown was gridlocked. There was signs posted outside of it that just said sold out all day. The the convention was already in full swing. I arrived Wednesday, um, at about 3 PM, and that's because I wanted to get there the day early. We had a meeting that evening with dinner with everybody from the Wrecking Crew and Renegade. I need to note that none of our views are reflective of Renegade or their companies that they're associated with, especially not the Wrecking Crew. We love those guys. They are fantastic. Um, but yeah, I went with them. They paid for the hotel and the ticket and got me in, and in exchange, I ran some games for them, and I ran World of Darkness as your GM Isaiah. Now, Gen Con had so many games to it, and there's some that we were excited for. Most of them, like I was not expecting it. We thought the big ones would be there: Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, and when I got there and I saw all the other stuff that came, I'm like, "Oh, I have found my people." Now I've gone to gaming conventions. I went to Adepticon. I went to the LVO. I've gone to conventions before. I go to Comic-Con every year, and every time I'm like, "Something weird about this. This is a conglomerate of people that I'm not used to." And when I got to Gen Con, I was like, "Oh, that's why the tabletop games are my people. They're the best." And like I said, they showed off some amazing games, and they had a ton as usual, as Modi did their announcements, everyone did their announcements. We just wanna talk about our my experience there, and I was supposed to have somebody else here who did it. That's kinda why I'm still in the framework of we, instead of just me. And so if you hear me slip, that's because it is. Of course, Wow, we're pretty late into the show, but I'm your I'm I'm your GM Isaiah and your host. Welcome to Locked Loot, uh, your your place for tabletop wargamings. If you want to hit that like button, if you want to subscribe, uh, share with your friends and enemies. We always love it when the enemies show up. Of course, leave a comment there. We'll see it. We love talking with you guys too during it. Let us know about your Gen Con experience, how you felt about 2024. I thought it was holy crap, so many people. I'm not used to this level of people at an event, especially this size of event. So for reference, Gen Con had the Indianapolis Convention Center. It had the stadium. It had the hotel convention centers next door, JW, and I believe there was some stuff at the Hilton too. Like a bunch of the hotels surrounding the area also had events. This thing was absolutely massive, and it was a great time. You had the cosplayers come out, you had the LARPers come out, you had the block parties, which were amazing. If you have the funds to go to Gen Con, you want to go to at least experience it once. It is it's a gaming mecca. It's a tabletop gaming mecca, and tabletop gaming mecca. Oh, it's beautiful. I thought Adepticon was cool for the war games. Adepticon had nothing on Gen Con. Um, of course, the usual tournaments happened uh with war games, 40K, Star Wars Legion, Shatterpoint. They took Armada off of it, off the signage, which I was frustrated about. I know they announced no more developmental support, which is weird considering we also got a report that we would hear something uh from the company AMG this October. So it's weird. Um you might notice a dog wander up behind me. I have to sit down and pet it. I've got no choice. You'll see a dog wander, and it's nothing. Um, but yeah, Gen Con was amazing. Getting in there, packed. We had dinner with the Wrecking Crew and the Renegade people. Sat next to the CEO. Had a good talk with him. Talked about the gaming experience and just things in general. And it wasn't like wasn't an interview. I don't have things that reports or anything. We just had a chat, which was a lot of fun. And then, of course, we had the World of Darkness stuff, which is what I was running there. I was there. You have the Gen Con stuff, but I was there running World of Darkness. So I was running Werewolf and Hunter the Reckoning. Now, primarily Werewolf, but Hunter the Reckoning as well. Both 5V, so if you Werewolf people are there, um, we're there. It's the 5V. It's not the 20th anniversary or anything like that. Now, I got to talk about these two because I was surprised when I was learning these games. I actually really enjoyed these two games and learning to play them and running them. I really like the storyteller system. It fits within the framework of my GM experience. I really liked the role play. I liked the role play experience, and so these two games really spoke to that. They have the mechanics for it. Werewolf fits with the rage mechanic entering into it, where people can get brutal results regardless of where they're at. Whether they're fighting or in a conversation. In a fighting, brutal results are amazing, and when you're not fighting, brutal results are not amazing because you're unleashing that rage in a verbal argument or in a verbal discussion. You never want to persuade somebody and get a brutal result. And then Hunter, of course, is the best joke I heard about Hunter is Hunter the Reckoning is Supernatural the role playing game. You're just a cell of hunters taking down monsters. Pretty simple. There's more to it. Obviously, there's more lore to it, and there was more to it in the previous before version 5, which is the version that I ran there and ran intro games for. Now, version 5 came out in October, so it's still a very newer game. I've been studying up on Hunter since since I found out I was going, which is February. So, got the book, read it up. Hunter Hunter the Reckoning was great. Running these games for the Wrecking Crew um, was a lot of fun. Again, I don't speak for the company, nothing like that, but running it for them was great. Running in there, playing their games. Um, we ran what's called a module called Rotten Home. Now, if you have not run or been in convention games, they're very different than home games. Convention games, the module is pre-made, a lot of times written by the company. So, for instance, Renegade wrote the modules for Vampire, Werewolf, Hunter, and all of them. I don't think they wrote the Hunter one. They also made the characters. So Paradox did that. If you don't know, yeah, World of Darkness is owned by Paradox Games. I can get behind Paradox Games. I like Paradox Games. Um, but I would say there's an issue that we ran into with these. They were okay. From behind the DM screen, you would never see this. We were all running our games. And yeah, from behind the DM screen, you wouldn't, or the storyteller screen, or whatever you want to call it, the GM screen. Hi, dog. You would never see this, but these modules had some issues written into them, and I can't go on without talking about it. For instance, the games you played at Gen Con, you had entirely different experiences based on who you played with. Not just the players, but with the storyteller. And that's because the module was very thin for Werewolf. Rotten Home, I love Paradox to death. Nothing against them. I loved working for them. I just think that the storytelling could have been a little bit better. And I think criticism is an important aspect to these because we had a blast. The people at my table had so much fun. But my game, while we hit the major story beats and everyone did, our games were so different because the module was so thin. So the module went with a very simple structure. They visited another werewolf pack, got involved in a ritual, and that ritual turned out to be practically heresy. Trying to turn the werewolves against their against the Weaver and in favor of the Worm. If you know anything about werewolf lore, you know that. If you don't worry about it. That was one of the complaints we got is that one, the module was heavily reliant on the lore, and the people playing at these games were checking out the games. They may have played a couple times before, but they're not so heavily invested in World of Darkness. At least not the fifth edition that they know a lot about the lore. Um and so like as my intro, when I introduced the characters, I introduced everything. I had to do a quick rundown of this lore because I'm like, this will come up. This is important. And a quick rundown of it. It's like, okay, because I had to do a lore dump exposition at the beginning, I didn't like doing that. I never liked doing that. I like spreading it out through my things. But if you don't understand the issues facing the werewolves, you're gonna have problems coming later. And because of that, my game heavily relied on the social dynamic of what's we know there might be something wrong with this. We need to figure out what's wrong with it and fix it before they're onto us. And I'm like, cool. Yeah, we run with that. That's how we run it. The group next to me was very different. Our characters were very different because they were very thin on characters. For instance, the main characters of the plot were Hector, Alejandro, uh, Janet, and Farah. Now, Hector and Alejandro, pack leader and right master. Janet, I'm still not sure where Janet fits into things because I actually wrote her out. Um, and that's the thing. We had to do revisions as storytellers. We had to completely design these characters from the ground up because we got one sentence for each of these characters, and we're like, you want us to run a 4-hour game and we get such a flimsy character and such a social game that these characters are so thin. Our description of Alejandro is he's the pack leader of the North Rim and he is on the brink. On the brink of what? And I had problems with that. On the brink of what? What is he on the brink of? And so one of the guys was like, he's on the brink of falling victim to the right, and other people went with that, and I went, no, he's on the brink of despair. And it's like they left too much room for interpretation that the characters were very different. I played Alejandro as a pack leader who has been usurped by his right master. And one of my groups picked up on that, and I loved it because they played into that. They played into, no, no, you should be doing something. You're the leader here. Why aren't you doing something? And then one of the groups was like, no, no, we just want him out of the way so we can deal with the real problem. I made sure that there was a cleanup to it. The issue is, and this is very much a theme with Werewolf, is that there's no good victory. Um, there's no good ending to it. And I'm like, but the endings that they gave us were so thin that I'm like, I rewrote those too. But honestly, after all the revisions, I can complain all I want, but the people had a blast. That is the most important thing. If you are planning on running convention games, if you are running convention games and you are either learning the system, you know the system, and you're just like you're playing with strangers, so you kind of play it by ear. But the most important thing, other than like you have your module, you hit your big story beats, but the most important thing is everybody having fun. My table was a roar of laughter. Everyone was having a blast, and that's because that was the goal. My goal wasn't, "We're here to play a very serious game." We're like, "We're here to play a serious game, but we're all gonna have fun doing it. We're gonna laugh. We're gonna have a great time." We had our serious moments where people were silent at my table and everything, so they were going, "There is something wrong here." And then we had moments where people were like, "I do this," and the scenario changes, and we are laughing and just having fun. Everyone had a blast. That's what's important. If you're running convention games, the players having fun is the most important thing. And that's the thing about role playing games in general. The mo- I'm going to get off this train before I keep going, but the most important thing is having fun. They talk about the 3 pillars of role-playing games, and I talked about this on Tuesday. And Gen Con is actually what prompted that conversation. The pillars of TTRPGs are exploration, role-playing, and combat. Exploration, role-playing, combat. And then somebody else, Kobold Press ticked me off because they said, and the 4th pillar is fun. No, no, no. The fun is the foundation upon which these pillars are built. If you are not having fun, the TTRPG is not functioning properly. You should be having fun. That is the most important thing. If you're not, it's not working. Now, of course, Werewolf had its own issues. Hunter was an intro. So when I ran Hunter, it was a blast. Action, whereas Werewolf was intrigue. What's wrong? I played Werewolf very much as you guys don't know you're going into a trap. And like, had a wild goose chase in the first segment trying to figure out the relationship between Alejandro and Hector, and was like, "This wild goose chase is to throw you off the scent until you realize we're already trapped." And whereas that was the goal of the Werewolf, the Hunter was action movie. We are busting out guns in hand, going after the vampire. And I played that on the intro, and the intro people had a blast too because, you know, we had fun. It was so much fun for them as they just got to hunt a vampire through a crack house. That was it. That was it's thin story-wise, it's supposed to be. You pop out and you go hunting. I like Hunter the Reckoning. I like the idea of Hunter the Reckoning. Personally, I think I enjoyed Hunter the Reckoning more than I did Werewolf the Apocalypse, because Hunter is very much the human side, and you can get the irony of the situation, the weird groups that work together. Now everybody was Russian, so that was a joke that we didn't realize until we were all reading the character sheets, and everyone went, "Wait, are we all Russian?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're all Russian immigrants. Everyone here speaks Russian." And so my table, whereas everyone else in the room who was playing like G.I. Joe and My Little Pony and Werewolf and Vampire were all talking seriously and doing all their things. And then my table, you just had the bad Russian accent. We just want to grab the gun. Just the bad Russian accents all around. It was a lot of fun. It was a blast. We had fun with it. Um, of course, other than these, there were game announcements. Now, I haven't talked about the game announcements because I'm still talking about my experience. And I talk about these because I ran these 8 hours a day for 3 days, and I had a blast doing it. If you get a chance to run convention games. They are so much fun. The convention games are so much fun. You you can't you can't get past it. It's just a blast all the way around. Of course, other than that, we had game announcements. Now, one of the ones was Sears Catalog. And these are just games that I got a chance to take a look at in between my games. I didn't get to see as much. Honestly, Sears Catalog was kind of boring to me. I mean, it's just another card game. 1 to 13, uh, everybody ascending. So essentially how it works is everybody they play it as, you're trying to order things to deal with the monsters in the village. And it's like, okay, no, no, everyone's just trying to get rid of the cards in their hand. You didn't need to frame it this way. You framed it in such a weird way that it could have just been another Phase 10 or Rummy style or generic card game, and instead they put this filter on it, and I'm like, I I don't approve of that. I wasn't too fond of that little bit, so I'm not gonna touch on Sears Catalog too much. Um, and that's just 'cause I wasn't very impressed. Now, another game that came up, of course, was Let's Go to Japan. This was a big one. If you walked in, you saw Let's Go to Japan. Um, Let's Go to Japan is deck building, a fun deck building game in which you're assembling your perfect itinerary. You're trying It's one of those table engine building games, kinda like Clank or something, where you're building your deck, but you're laying it on the table. So you're like, "Okay, today we're doing this, 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 this. We're jumping between Tokyo, Kyoto to have the most fun." The goal is to build your perfect Japan vacation. And I'm like, "Okay, that is a fun idea." The travel mechanic of building your itinerary. And you're like, "I'm doing this, 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 this," and then there's mechanical solutions and points that you get based on it. And then at the end of the rounds, your engine you get to just see your engine go off. And your itinerary for a week-long vacation is built. Boom. You watch your engine go off and you get points and decide the winner based on that. Let's Go to Japan was fun. I like the concept of it, but it also has potential because Let's Go to Japan is just the easy one. They also used traditional Japanese artists and artistry, which was nice to see. So you had a very authentic feel to the game. And I liked that. I really liked that about this game is that it had that authentic feel. But when I was looking at it, I'm going, okay, you're not no, 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 you can do more with this. Let's Go to Japan isn't the end. Sure, you can have the Let's Go to Japan, expansion of the north part of Japan or some of this, Fukushima or that kinda thing, because this is Kyoto and Tokyo. But I'm like, "No, no, no. You could expand it more. Instead of let's go to Japan, let's go to Italy. Let's go to France. Let's go to let's go to Egypt." And you're like, "Okay, we're building our itinerary for these different areas." And the game is so easy to replicate on a larger scale to go, "Okay, we're not just doing let's go to Japan, we're doing let's go to America." Which would be harder, it's more like let's go to Utah, uh, or let's go to California because of how big America is. But I'm not getting on that topic. America is massive. Um, be aware of that. America is absolutely huge. Now now, of course, Let's Go to Japan had its issues, it's not for everybody. This kinda game isn't for everybody. Jake has problems with deck builders and this style of game, and getting into it. These engine builders, I enjoy them. I think people will enjoy this game. I can't I This is a game that I'm like, I wanna go pick up. It's a lot of fun. I played it there, get back, and it's like, "Okay, yeah, this is what we're gonna do." But I'm like, this game has potential. This game has a ton of potential to become something bigger if people can buy into it and get into it. And it's like, "Okay, you don't like the Japanese theming? Yeah, like I said before, let's go to Italy." You're jumping between Venice and Florence or, Rome and Tuscany, and you're building your itinerary on that. And everyone has that moment where they're like, "What do we wanna do on a vacation?" It's like this builds it out, and you're like, "Oh, cool." And you might learn things about the different areas, different things you can do, so it's a little bit informational about the travel. And I'm like, "That is cool." That is a lot of fun, and I really like the fun of this. Um, but I can't sit here and talk about Let's Go to Japan forever because Let's Go to Japan was not the only thing here. I want to talk about this one was plastered on. I don't know if everybody saw it, but there was this role playing game released a few years ago called The One Ring. Now, they also did a 5e variant. Like, we do a lot of role playing stuff here and RPG stuff on the channel. And so when I was there and I saw The One Ring, I'm like, we're reading the Silmarillion right now, me and my brother. And so I can't take a look at The One Ring and go, pass. I'm like, no, I gotta go watch. I gotta go check it out. And I went to the booth and saw it, and sadly, by the time I got there, the core book had sold out. The starter set had sold out. It, I could see the 5e stuff, but I'm like, I wanted to see the actual game. And I'm like, I'm kind of disappointed there. It's all right though. But the One Ring. Talking about the One Ring, it's a very interesting game, and I love that they're finally getting expansions. And in the lead up to the end of the month, when Jake's really excited for Return to Moria coming to Xbox, I saw Moria through the doors of Durin, and I'm like, oh, there's the Moria expansion. That is cool too. That is a lot of fun. And it's like, okay, reading on it, I'm like, okay, so it's not necessarily a Return to Moria because the One Ring is a role playing game. You can pretty much set it wherever you want in the timeline of the Lord of the Rings. So you can be like, okay, so you guys got to go through Moria to get to through Khazad-dûm to get to the mountains, and that's just a part of your journey. Or oh, your dwarves trying to reclaim Moria before the Third Age or after the Third Age during the Fourth Age, and it's like it's a fun concept. Now, the One Ring does a lot of interesting things. I went through and read their core rulebook on 5e just because I was trying to look for a solution to my travel issues with 5e, and they have a very interesting travel solution. And I'm like, the travel mechanics are quick and dirty, very easy. Uh, if you're going place to place, you know what you're looking for. You're going from town to town. You're like, okay, we're going here to here. This is our route. Um, this is our routes. And then because this is our route, this is how many days it'll take. And of course you go, okay, so you're going, uh, it's say a 15-day journey. Okay, you guys are making a 15-day journey. You're going at normal pace. Um, every when you guys leave, give me a pathfinding check, which in 5e is just a survival check for road, and that determines how far out an event happens. And these events can range from finding a shortcut to somebody almost dies. And it's like, okay, that is really fun. And it makes travel very fast. You know, as DMs, sometimes we fast travel, and I'm like, this is a way for players to fast travel without making it boring. You spend 10 minutes describing this journey where people are falling off cliffs, people are finding magical shortcuts, that kind of thing. And I'm like, the One Ring's travel mechanic is really nice. And then it's like at the end, everybody makes a fatigue check, which in 5e is a Constitution saving throw against exhaustion based on how long your journey was, because the journey was long. You get there, you're tired. You feel the weight of all the exhaustion as soon as you reach your goal. And that creates an interesting circumstance for players. I'm like, the One Ring has a lot to it. And I'm really excited for Through the Doors of Durin. And because I got to read it, I didn't actually pick up a core rule book, but I'm gonna be picking one up because the One Ring as a system with darkness checks, people succumbing to despair, that kind of thing. It's it's a lot of fun. And I'm like, okay, it fits very thematic with the Lord of the Rings, and that's what matters. And they spent a lot of time. I can tell that the people were fans of the Lord of the Rings, which in the age of the Rings of Power, we know the difference between somebody who actually enjoys the Lord of the Rings and the property and somebody who doesn't. And I'm like, okay, yes, please enjoy the game. When you build your game, you're building it on the Lord of the Rings. You better love it. And first of all, I love that the Tolkien estate finally was like, RPG, Lord of the Rings, let's do it. And so it's like, no, yes, perfect. These people have a passion for the game too, and I love that they do, which is wonderful. I'm like, That's what you need. You need to have this passion for the game and for the story, and going as deep as through the doors of Durin of like, you guys, Moria is dangerous, and sure we saw Moria in the Fellowship of the Ring, but everyone's like, it's a dark place. Many don't know like the full story of Moria, and it's like, okay, maybe your dwarf's going to retake it. It's like Moria was a dangerous place. Moria was dark, evil, and many people died until the Fourth Age until they came for it. Um, Lastly, there's only one other thing. We're jumping on because I could go on about the Lord of the Rings forever, and I don't want to do that forever because if we go on the Lord of the Rings forever, we're gonna have those issues. I'm gonna take off my glasses real quick for this one, because I want to talk to you through my own eyes. I'm just kidding. I'm blind. It's more of a statement that I can talk about this in my sleep, and I could talk about this. The big thing that I was there for, that I saw, of course, was Heroescape. And I just reached to adjust my glasses. The joke failed, people. The joke failed. But I was there for Heroescape. Um, Now, Heroescape, 20-year-old game. It was fun in the early 2000s. The community kept it alive. In 2020, they tried to bring it back with a fundraiser, a Kickstarter essentially, and it failed miserably because the marketing wasn't there. I'm not getting into it. The game has had a rough in reintroduction, but Gen Con 2024, they had the Age of Annihilation release, and I'm like, holy crap! They actually brought it back. We knew it was coming. We're going to be covering Heroescape more and more in the coming weeks because it launches in a week or two. So I'm only going to touch on it. I'm not going to go through it entirely. I'm not going to go on through it entirely, because honestly, to go through it entirely, I would be going through cards, I'd be going through mechanics, I'd be like, we're introducing you to Heroescape. But that's next week. We're talking about Age of Annihilation because at Gen Con, I got my copies, and we've got our Master Set and Wellspring set. If you got a chance to pick these up, pick them up. They're a whole lot of fun. That's all I can say about it. It's your introduction to wargaming. If you wanted your kids to learn a war game, this is how it's done. And this game has been around forever, and there's a multitude of releases. It's the battle for all time. So if you don't want to play the robots, you can play the knights. If you don't want to play the knights, you can play the bears. There's so much to it. The Valkyries. I can go on and on about Heroescape. I love Heroescape as a game, and we'll probably be setting up live plays of the game. But I gotta say, seeing Heroescape there at the Renegade booth and taking up like a third of it and showing it off and doing Wellspring plays, but more importantly, they had a tournament. They had a tournament. They had the 20th anniversary Heroescape tournament, and they did a couple versions. They did the Age of Annihilation tournament when everyone could play with the new stuff. Everyone played with the Age of Annihilation stuff. They played with the Zenithrax and the new Raylan, uh, and it's like, okay, that's cool. You got people to experiment with the new stuff, build their lists on it, but they also did the Battle for All Time. And they were planning on splitting the game into these formats anyway, concurrent and Battle for All Time, because they're doing more and more, and they don't want to just balance against the old stuff. The new stuff wants to balance against itself, and it's this tightrope of balance. And I'm okay with that. I like the tightrope of balance. They do well with it. Um, I was surprised at it. We'll be talking at length next week, so don't let me just go on and on about Heroescape. But they had the tournament. They had the Battle for All Time tournament, which means with that, they had the launch of the Heroescape BattleNet. They released it a couple weeks before, but they announced everybody at the event would be using it. Now, the BattleNet is where you can find events. It is also an army builder. It's an army builder. So you can be like, oh, okay. So I want these guys, put it all in. And that's something that Heroescape's needed. That was my issue with Heroescape the most, is that the Heroescaper forum has been alive in our heart for a long time, but the forum looks like it's from 2008. And when you're building for a modern audience, you can't have that 2008 feel, which means the Heroescaper forum needed an update. And the BattleNet is the perfect way to do it because now you can put everything in there, and it has a ranking system and point system, and I'm like, "I love that." The BattleNet is the future, it's well designed, like, I love this BattleNet where I'm like, "Set it up, run it." I wish I could be showing you the BattleNet, honestly, I didn't think I'd be talking about it, but the HeroScape launch went well at Gen Con. The HeroScape community has been on it a little bit. We'll talk about that next week because there has been some issues with the release. But the BattleNet, the release of the game, has been phenomenal, and I'm so glad they were able to do it. Of course, like if you were to look at the games that we talked about, Sears catalog, meh. Let's go to Japan. Concept, love it, run it. The One Ring, I'm a Tolkien boy. I love the One Ring. I love what they did for the game, and Through the Doors of Durin, I'm looking forward to it. And then, of course, HeroScape. HeroScape is the big boy. HeroScape is the next release. Honestly, I really want HeroScape to succeed. And I'm like, I will push and I will push and I will push and I'll make sure HeroScape, at least as I know it succeeds. I need to get in touch with the Utah monthly community group because I would love to bring them into the next days to get events posted on BattleNet and that kind of thing. Um, I can't go on and on about Gen Con. It was a blast. It was one of those had to be there events, and I love it. If you have a chance to go to Gen Con, go to Gen Con. It's so much fun. Um, I can't talk about it forever. We're already time. Give us 20 minutes. We'll be playing some games. I don't know what I'm playing, but probably Helldivers. Um, but I will see you there. Of course, I'm your host, Isaiah. Hit that you're this far, hit that like button, subscribe. Follow us on Twitch. We'll be streaming our game first on Twitch, or Helldivers first on Twitch, and